Welcome to the second viewing where love wins every time. I'm Dan.
I'm Kyle.
Shaka bro.
Welcome to the cast today, guys. We're talking about Funny People. This is a pretty cool one. A little bit of a hidden gem, if you will. 2009 film directed by Judd Apatow. Stars our boy Adam Sandler and our actual boy Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
So, Dan, man, thoughts on Funny People just right off the bat. Like, what's your feelings towards this movie?
I like it. I like it in general. I'm not like in love with the movie. I like it. But it's got a little bit of a depressing undertone the whole way through. But
you're right, man. It's kind of a dramedy in a way, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely a dramatic comedy. That's
right.
what a dramedy is. I read that somewhere.
Okay, well, it definitely. I'd say it focuses on comedy, and the drama part is like the gripping underbody of the story. Yeah,
you're totally right. It's kind of a weird movie in a sense because it focuses around comedy, right, and like stand-up comedians. But yeah, you're right. Like the movie is kind of a depressing undertone throughout most of the movie, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess to me, the way I've always seen this movie is like kind of like how people always say comedians kind of are depressed guys. It's very self-deprecating, and they kind of have to rip on themselves to like give joy to other people, right?
I think that kind of comes up,
and it comes up in the film
movie, yeah.
To a degree, especially in Sandler's character, and I don't know. It kind of creates this weird like back and forth, like yin and yang kind of thing that I really like kind of both sides of the coin. Like it's a funny lifestyle, but like not everything's perfect about it, and I think it seems really real in a way. Like from what I understand, this movie is obviously based off of like real events in a way, not exactly story-wise, but it's based off of Adam Sandler being an actual stand-up comedian. Like he was that growing up or rising to fame.
Sort of like where he ended up almost.
And the thing that fascinates me the most about this movie is because like to me, I mean, I don't think Sandler's ever come out and actually like admitted this or verified this. It's just kind of an assumption, but to me this seems like this is Adam Sandler's life, and you'd think like just based on the events of this movie kind of coming to terms on like what your life's about, like your purpose, like, that kind of thing. It's the way he chose to go with his career after this movie just baffles me.
Yeah. Like Jack and Jill came out after this, correct?
Oh, it did. Yeah. Jack and Jill actually went in.
Jack and Jill's like for sure 2011 or something like that.
Jack and Jill is like one of those movies that is kind of timeless, but yeah, it did come out in 2011. You're right.
2011.
Yeah. That's a 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way, in case you're wondering.
That's a beautiful rating. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting story. So basically what happens is Jonah Hill is... No, Seth Rogen, sorry.
They're the same person.
I get them mixed up so much.
In 2009, they were kind of the same person.
Yeah.
Let's be serious.
Anyways, it's Jonah Hill, right? No, it's Seth Rogen.
It's Seth Rogen.
Oh my God. So Seth Rogen kind of gets presented with an opportunity to write some jokes for George Simmons. George Simmons is the name of Adam Sandler's character in this movie. And he gets an opportunity to write some jokes for him after he crosses path with him at his like local comedy pub, basically.
Yeah, like the comedy show.
bar.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny to see that like a community. I feel like everything in this movie just seems like it's actually real. Like I get a sense of like a lot of reality. This is like how it actually is for these like up and coming comedians.
Right. Yeah.
At the same comedy bar though, or pub, whatever you want to call it, as we see Aziz Ansari.
Oh yeah.
It's Randy.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, it's Randy, and that was kind of a famous or popular skit for him for a while.
Totally. Yeah. That kind of was one of the standout things the first time I saw this film back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get Seth Rogen's character. He like kind of almost snipes the opportunity from Jonah Hill's character because Jonah Hill's kind of known as the slightly funnier guy in comparison to Seth Rogen's character. Ira Wright, that's his name in the film. And he kind of snipes the opportunity, kind of like takes advantage of it so he can kind of get in with George Simmons and whatnot. But the whole reason he's doing this, or the whole reason George Simmons wants him to do this, is because he kind of wants to have a claim to fame again. He kind of wants to get back to stand-up.
Yeah.
He's
getting back to his roots, kind of thing.
Yeah, the thing is, this movie's like kind of meta, right? Like that's what people call it. It's very like self-aware of like everything, and Adam Sandler plays a character in which it's based off what he's been doing. Like, he's the kind of guy that's just been doing like kind of silly family comedies where he accidentally gets swapped into a baby's body, or his best friend's a robot, like all these like crazy things.
Yeah, they make fun of what Jack and Jill is basically throughout the movie.
But Jack and Jill came out after this, and again, this is why it baffles me. But we'll kind of get into that a little bit later, I think.
What I think is kind of interesting about the movie is sort of. It sort of tells George Simmons, Adam Sandler's character, coming to the end of his career, or like on the peak, or the the downward end of his career, and sort of the upward end of Ira's or Seth Rogen's.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's kind of like a reverse of roles. It seems that way, like it's kind of passing the torch, that kind of thing. I think you're right about that, and not only that, but George Simmons, Adam Sandler's character, he finds out that he's sick, has a form of like leukemia, and he's kind of having that midlife crisis, not only the fact that he's sick, but also because he's kind of like thinking like, what does my career become? He's watching old stand-up footage of himself, and he's reliving a past life in a way. So he wants to do more stand-up, but he realizes that he hasn't done stand-up in years. He kind of doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
So he wants Ira to help him write these jokes, and that's kind of where the movie progresses. They kind of develop this relationship of maybe Ira will open up for him at events like this MySpace event, which, by the way, dates this movie terribly, but that's okay.
Which is kind of hilarious to go back and watch it and see that, see MySpace at the very end of its life.
Yeah, right. 2009 is probably when MySpace, like...
2009 is definitely the end of MySpace, that's for sure.
But...
Dying company.
I actually remember watching this and, like... The first time I saw this, I remember thinking it was already kind of dated, like, to bring in MySpace, to be completely honest with you. But I understand that's how kind of, like, brand deals work. I'm sure it was in motion before it was even in production and whatnot.
Right. And it was probably... MySpace probably knew that it was, like, their last chance to get some advertising. And, like, I bet you the few people that did go see Funny People, because it was... It was a box office failure.
It's true, yeah.
The few people that did go to see it, I think maybe looked up MySpace again. I mean, I'm sure I did the first time I saw it. I was
probably
like, what's going on with MySpace these days?
That's fair. That's actually a good point.
You know what's funny? I think MySpace might have had a recent launch again. Like, they tried to relaunch it.
They did. This was like maybe, it's a couple years ago now. Like 2 or 3 years ago. Like, they relaunched the site, but like, weird interface. It didn't work. Anything that MySpace used to offer is just in better spots now on the internet. So it means nothing. But we digress.
We digress.
We'll digress from that.
You
bring up a good point, though, about how this being a failure, and there's a couple, I guess, reasons or just like blanket statements on why that happens, or why that happened in this case. This movie was marketed kind of strange, only in the sense that it's coming off of Knocked Up and 40-Year-Old Virgin, Judd Apatow's films before this, and those are hugely successful comedies that kind of almost changed... how comedy films at the time are being made, and like that kind of style of humor, that kind of drier, very blunt style was becoming more relevant.
Yeah, and I think it definitely raised some eyebrows a little bit. Like, it pushed the limit a little bit. It
was also giving a good name for like Canadian comedians. Like a lot of those actors are from Canada. It was kind of a different brand of humor, and like that's pretty sweet. But anyway, so coming off of that, this movie was marketed. It was called Funny People. It has, Adam Sandler. And at this point, Adam Sandler still had some cred, I'd say, to a degree.
Yeah.
Not, some of it was definitely, it was drifting away for sure. Yeah. But,
He had some cred.
He still had it. And I would say Seth Rogen was at the height of his career almost, pretty much. Coming off Superbad, Knocked Up, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So it was marketed as like, brand new movie with Seth Rogen and Adam Sandler. Like, it seemed like, this is a match made in heaven. This is going to be awesome.
More of a marketing failure, really, because the movie's not. It's not your typical comedy. It's not your lighthearted comedy. It's almost like an American dark comedy.
It's true. You're right. That's a good point. Like, it reminds me of something like a British filmmaker would work on.
Right.
It totally has that style of the humor and the substance to like how they portray the characters. Like, it's very self-deprecating, and that's kind of what a lot of British humor usually is. Like, if you compare the British Office to the American Office, it's so dark, like in tone.
It's very dark.
Kind of like that. But so people kind of went into this film expecting something and just not really getting what they wanted. I don't at all think this means this movie was bad.
I agree.
But it just wasn't what people were expecting, which honestly is fair. And you're right, that is a marketing failure. Like, if you're going in expecting, the new Judd Apatow film with Seth Rogen and Adam Sandler, oh god, that's gonna be funny. And like there are funny parts, but it's not what you would think.
And maybe some of it comes down to, the crowd, like Judd Apatow fans. Like,
true.
Maybe they have come to expect a certain something, but at the same time, I feel like if you know Judd Apatow, you know that he's got something up his sleeve.
It's true. Like, look at Freaks and Geeks. It's in a similar kind of vein of tone to Freaks and Geeks in a way.
Yeah.
It's still funny, but still, a coming-of-age story and kind of, like, dark and sullen in a way. Like,
it's got that sort of undertone, but it's almost like, the typical, like, happy ending... high school movies, like High School Musical, or jump up in the air, fist pump type movie.
Yeah,
like the teeny bopper, School's Out, Scream and Shout type movies.
Yeah.
Judd Apatow kind of pulls Freaks and Geeks off in that way, but also showcases the dark side of it, or sort of like,
that's true.
Yeah, he brings a little bit more realism to it.
I always saw the way he kind of views people and like the way they interact in the similar way that John Hughes did in the 80s with like Breakfast Club and 16 Candles and Weird Science, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whereas back then, and people will still make the argument that he was able to capture what high school life was like and what kids were really like. And for that time, he did it really well. I think they still stand the test of time and whatnot.
Yeah, it translates well.
It translates well. And I think in a way, Judd Apatow can find that realism in a new age. Maybe not. He doesn't nail it out of the park every time, but you're talking about Freaks and Geeks and, even Knocked Up. I think those are movies that really kind of look at serious situations, can look at it in a lighthearted way, but also you feel like you could be that character.
Yeah.
Like literally in Knocked Up, Seth Rogen fucks Katherine Heigl and no one bats an eye. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. Anyways.
But they, to be fair, they kind of joke about it.
That's true, they do. Actually, there's an episode of Entourage where they like rip on Seth Rogen so hard for that, and Seth Rogen gets so. Anyways, in real life, Seth Rogen got really mad and like was pissed off at Marky Mark.
That's funny.
Anyways, but yeah, so more into the depths of this film as we're talking about Ira writing jokes for George Simmons and whatnot. They do this for a while for a good duration of the film. Then we get into this point where we find out that George is actually like terminally ill. He's like probably gonna die soon.
Yeah, and there's some really depressing scenes along those lines. It's like after he ends up filling in Seth Rogen, Seth Rogen kind of comforts him before bed, talks to him, and while he's puking at the toilet,
Yeah,
like
he becomes his... Yeah, he becomes kind of his forced confidant. To become his friend in a way.
Yeah.
Whether they're actually friends or not, which kind of comes to light in this movie during the end as well.
Yep.
Yeah, he's forced to become his confidant. He kind of is labeled as his assistant as well as his writer and whatnot. Kind of a... Yeah. I don't know. He's
jack of all trades. Yeah, he sort of just fills the gaps in
his life.
George Simmons' life. Yeah.
Yeah. So he finds out that he needs to kind of continue this search of, meeting up with people he's maybe wronged in the past, or just coming back to past events, similar to the way he was viewing his old comedy material. He's trying to view his life, a life he once lived. He goes to see his sister he hasn't seen in years, talks to old comedians and friends.
Well, that's interesting too, because that's directly after a scene that Seth Rogen says you need to tell someone other than me.
Right. Yeah. And so that's important too. I think it's interesting to see like kind of Ira see this guy as just nothing but like an idol or like a comedian, a comic figure, but then also like, hey, like I still treat you as a human. Like it makes Ira seem like a pretty noble dude, I'd say.
Yeah.
And that's where the kind of the next layer of this film emerges, and we will see that George wants to talk to his old flame, the one that got away, sort of thing, and that's played by Leslie Mann.
Judd Apatow's wife in real life.
Judd Apatow's wife in real life. It's true, and she's appeared in a number of his films. 4-Year-Old Virgin,
Knocked Up.
Is she in? Yeah, 4-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, and This Is 40.
Right.
Which is another good movie, by the way.
I haven't seen This Is 40.
Man, it's cool. Like. It's in the vein of Funny People in a way where it's like a little more, I wouldn't say dark, but it's just realistic, It's looking at what it's like to be that age and like what you were like then. I mean, I can't fully relate. I'm not 40, but I get the idea with, and it's kind of a spiritual sequel to Knocked Up. Has the same characters of Paul Rudd, who's always kills it, classic Rudd, and then Leslie Mann. But anyways, it's interesting to see that he does include his wife in a lot of projects, but like they work together so well. Like Leslie Mann, like she's a perfect like mom character, Yeah. She's like always plays the best mom.
She does, yeah, really.
And it's funny, and there's been films in recent years that kind of make fun of that, or little like bits that make fun of that, but it's really true.
Well, it's because, I don't know, she comes across as such like a modern mom.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally right.
Or like a big city mom, where she's not... She's overprotective, but in the right ways. But she's also, you can sense that vulgar wild side, or like,
like she's down to earth. Like she's not so much like
she comes across as, a person who became a mother, not someone that was born a mother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like didn't put, like she put herself into the mother role in comparison to sort of always taking on the mother mentality.
Yeah. Okay. No, I could see that. And to go with that, her actual kids are in the film. They play her children in the movie. Also, obviously, Judd Apatow's real life children. And so what happens is that Ira, kind of, as he was telling, George, you need to go talk to these people. You tell these people what's going on. George tells his old flame Laura that he's dying, and they kind of reconnect, and they decide, you're not going to be around very long. Let's hang out. Come over, stay at my place for the weekend, and let's make a thing of it. Let's make an event of it.
Yeah.
And like you were talking, this is where things get a little bit strange. Maybe not strange, but surreal kind of. The tone of the movie stays the same, I would say, but kind of the subject matter changes.
Yeah, huge content switch, really.
Yeah, completely.
Because I guess it's kind of about George Simmons, but it's also very much about Ira, but it switches to like including Ira a lot less, to the point where like Ira fights to be
part of the situation. I think this is probably where the movie's faults probably show up truly, because if you look at the first half of the film, or even the first 2 quarters of the film, you get a lot of what the comedy lifestyle is about, and what writing jokes are about, and like you get a glimpse into that, and then like as you say, this content switch happens where it's just basically focused on these relationships.
Yeah.
That being said, the character development is really great. So by the time that change happens, I'm already invested in Ira. I'm invested in George. I want to see where they're going. I want to see how they interact in the situation.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. That being said, I think kind of just getting rid of the comedy aspect of the film does it a disservice in a way. It jumps back and forth a little when you see like Jason. Oh God, Jason Schwartzman in this movie is so funny.
Yo Teach.
Also a great cameo by Bo Burnham. Love Bo Burnham.
Oh, yeah.
Jason
Shout out
Schwartzman.
to our boy Bo Burnham, Shaka Bra.
Shaka Bra to Bo Burnham. Boy Burnham. Boy.
Boy Burnham?
Yeah. Jason Schwartzman plays a character named Mark, who's kind of the successful one out of the group. Like,
yeah, it's like, well, I mean, technically, Jonah Hill is a little bit more successful than Seth Rogen. Right. Seth Rogen's kind of sitting at the bottom of the barrel. He's had to see what it's like. And so he's sitting at the bottom of the barrel to see what it's like. And
where he's at.
Yeah, where he's at. And then the next step up is sort of Jonah Hill. And the next step up from that, whose house they're all staying in, is Jason Schwartzman.
Yeah, and he's on a sitcom called Yo Teach.
And he's just doing bad comedy.
Oh, it's like the worst sitcom.
But he does it like, it's almost like he does it sarcastically, but he totally rubs it in Jonah Hill.
Oh, he knows that it's awful, but he's like, oh, I'm successful and you're not, so I'm going to make sure you know that.
Yeah.
It's honestly, Jason Schwartzman's such an ass in this movie, but it's so funny. I love when Jason Schwartzman kind of does that weird, like, comedic standpoint. Like,
yeah.
I love that. But yeah, so they do kind of go back and forth to Mark and Leo, I'm pretty sure is Jonah Hill's character's name. They go back to Mark and Leo a few times, but not a lot. And I kind of wish, even if they went back to them a few other times, or, other aspects of this movie, Daisy, one of the characters played by Aubrey Plaza.
Yep.
One of the first things I think I saw her in also, by the way.
Let's bring up Daisy a little bit, because she's a unique character in this movie.
She is. They kind of...
And she fits Judd Apatow's sort of like style of film and comedy very well.
They kind of deadpan and sullen, but at the same time,
yeah,
she's still hilarious. I don't know. They kind of do that too. They kind of bring up like, oh, like you're a female comedian, and like so when she goes up and she does her bit, it's all about like, I hate rappers telling me what to do all the time.
Yeah.
Like, fucking sit down, bitch. She's like, no, I don't want to. Like,
drop to the floor. Shake that ass, bitch. No.
He's like, no, I'm good. She is funny. She does fit in really well. And there's kind of a small lackluster romance that they tried to build in this film between her and Seth Rogen.
Speaking of that, where does that end up in the film?
It doesn't really go anywhere, because what happens is they kind of set up this weird bet between Seth Rogen or Jason Schwartzman, or not so much a bet.
Or Jason Schwartzman says...
He gives him 9 days. Oh, you have 9 days before I'm just going to fuck her. So you have some time, buddy. Because that's just the kind of character he is in this movie. And then he doesn't end up kind of,
Well, I guess maybe, that really comes down to some character development.
It does. It is
says that Jonah Hill is like, he's naive in certain ways. Like, he's not prepared to jump in and take a risk and put himself out on the line to take this girl out on a date.
And then he gets upset when, like, she ends up actually sleeping with Seth Rogen. And she's like, you don't owe me. You don't even know me. And it's very true. And it's so fair for her to feel that way, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's a weird moment where you're like, it's strange because I always find that really cool. I feel that's pretty cool writing because at that moment you're kind of rooting for Seth Rogen. You're like, oh, like he wants to get this girl. Like, I hope he gets it because Jason Schwartzman's a complete ass. But then at the same time, he kind of gets put in his place. Like, oh, right. Like, I'm kind of rooting for a cause that doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It's
interesting. It's pretty cool, actually.
It's an interesting way of bringing some romance into it, or like
secondary life situations romance. Too. Honestly, that's very that's no story but romance.
Something
right
that
there.
Could definitely happen in real life.
Completely. But going back to kind of where this weekend rendezvous kind of sets up with Ira and George going to stay with Laura and her family for the weekend.
Ira's really against it.
Ira thinks it's a bad idea, and only because he realizes that George still has feelings for him. But the thing is, Laura has a wife and children, and it's just not a good situation to kind of be messing with, which just obviously makes sense. But I mean, George is a stubborn guy. He's a celebrity. He's a very successful man. He gets what he wants at this point.
Yeah,
right?
And he's and he's dying too, right?
Yeah, he wants to live out whatever kind of fantasy or.
So he's chasing his last. He's chasing the love of his life, essentially.
Yeah, you're right. He totally is.
He's doing it in a fucked up way, in a way that might actually potentially happen in real life. Because nothing's like a romance.
It's not, and he kind of realized, like, I'm sorry. I should have apologized sooner. She's like, yeah, well, maybe you should have said that like 13 years ago or whatever. And I guess it's strange to think it like, I don't know. You're right. The guy's dying. Like you can't quite understand what he's thinking, but he's just trying to get that last ditch effort. He's just trying to like put it in, like, why not see what can happen? Like, and I'm putting myself out here.
He keeps the fact that he's dying very low key in them.
He doesn't really rub it in her face, and she says
matter of fact, he hides it from her when he tries to tell her when he meets up with her.
Right.
And then she brings up, you're not really dying, you just wanted to see me. And he agrees with it. He said, yeah. He ends up deciding that he doesn't want her to know. And that's kind of almost the moment where he decides he's going to go after her again. At least you kind of get that feeling. Right.
Because I guess it's interesting knowing that before he even told her that, she was kind of still interested in him and still wanted to reconnect.
Yeah.
And, I think to him that was probably like, oh, well, there's still something here. But she has a husband. It's really completely messed up. Ira was totally correct in like trying to stop him from doing this. But nonetheless, they go through with it. And, Ira's his kind of assistant, secondhand sort of thing, goes up there with them, and they end up actually having dinner with everyone with the actual husband there. And it's a kind of an awkward, I guess it doesn't come off awkward at first, to be honest, because George is very just like buddy with everyone, just kind of like, it's like a family friend kind of thing.
Yep.
Playing that role. But then as soon as the husband leaves, played by Eric Bana,
he swoops in. And, to be fair, it is Leslie Mann also, they're reconnecting. There's a two-way street going on here. They end up hooking up, and it's strange. Yeah. But it pushes it, like, it sort of pushes her relationship with her husband forward a little bit in the way that she finds out that he's cheating on her, stuff like that.
He's doing these business trips and he's cheating on her, and in a weird way, you kind of end up seeing Adam Sandler's George Simmons, his faults or the wrong things going on in his life benefiting those around him. Like, you see him, he's a dying man and he's helping this up and coming comedian. You see this, he's a dying man, and he comes to this old relationship and kind of ends up helping this relationship in the long run.
Yeah, maybe he's finally learning something he was missing for a lot of years, kind of thing. Or maybe...
Well, I think it's funny just to see that, like, even if he's learning or not, like, he's benefiting, though he's helping people around him whether he knows it or not.
Yeah.
And I don't think the people around him kind of get it at first either, especially Ira. Ira's like, around this time in the film, Ira's like, man, what is going on? George is crazy. Like, these are... these are crazy things you're asking me to do right now and to participate in, and I'm not about it.
Yeah. Ira's, well, you can tell, and his character is developed really well. You get the sense that Ira's not the type of guy to go out on a limb and risk anything. Like, he's focused on comedy, and that's pretty much all he gives a shit about.
Right. And also, I think he's a kind of guy who's focused on being a good person.
Yeah.
You know? He realizes that he's kind of screwing over Jonah Hill's character in the first place, and so I think he's apprehensive to be more of an asshole.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to, be known as that guy. He's always trying to get ahead in a way. But this whole weekend situation is strange, and the switch in tone is odd. Like, you see George Simmons hanging out with the children of his ex girlfriend. It's
very weird.
It irks me in a way, but obviously that's what the movie wants you to feel. I think most people would recognize that it's a weird, inappropriate situation to be a part of.
And I think we've kind of really captured the essence of the film. It's dark. It's very real. It's not your typical comedy. It's a dramedy, or it's like an American dark comedy.
It is, yeah. I remember watching this twice while I was sick. Yeah. Fun story. Back in good old 2010, me and Dan here were in Japan doing a good old exchange.
Shout out to our girl Nene.
Yeah, what's up, girl? We were out there. I was sick I was pretty sick for the first couple days, roughly.
Yeah, it felt like the whole trip.
So the first kind of outing we go on as a group, because it was like an exchange to our high school, I just had to stay back. So I stayed back for the day, and I laid in bed and literally watched Funny People twice in a row. It was kind of the most depressing day ever. But at the same time, I was like, this is a really good movie. I don't know, I can appreciate a depressing flick. Mm-hmm. I can. And Funny People does it in a really interesting way where it's so self-aware, and it's so I don't know, I guess just we're the kind of guys that understand pop culture to a degree. We kind of we could see how these comedians maybe do actually live in real life, and just kind of viewing these celebrities in this film who are, not only are they celebrities and movie stars, but they are comedians. Mm-hmm. Them playing comedians is really interesting to watch. It kind of reminds me of, in a similar sense, This Is the End,
right,
where they play themselves. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of a cool idea.
It is a cool idea.
Yeah, they're playing comedians, which they are. It is cool, and yeah, it translates well to the movie. Absolutely. You get a sense of what they think comedy is about, or how they got there, or kind of what it is to them in some aspects.
And I think the uprise to fame too, they kind of touch on that, how it is to start off as a comedian, and then also the juxtaposition of someone who's already famous, right? You got Adam Sandler's character, who is huge, not only comedian but movie star. He was Merman. He was all these things. He has all these this huge mansion, all these cars. He is a successful person, and it's strange because he's literally playing himself in this flick. This is Adam Sandler, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think actually maybe we'll take a break here and we'll talk about Funny People, give our final thoughts after the breaker. Yeah. Come back and just keep discussing this. Maybe talk about more Judd Apatow stuff. But yeah.
Catch you guys after the breaker. And we're back.
All right, guys. So we're just going to finish up talking about our thoughts on Funny People. We kind of get into the end of the film here and what's going on. Where we last left off, we were just talking about this kind of rendezvous weekend sort of thing that's going on between Adam Sandler's character and Leslie Mann's character. What happens in this film is Ira's trying to kind of mess with the situation. He's trying to clear things up. So he goes to the airport, sure enough, and he sees Leslie Mann's husband. Mm-hmm. Kind of tells her what happens, or just telling him what happens. He runs back to the house, and him and Adam Sandler start fighting. It's a hilarious scene because Adam Sandler obviously cannot hold his own against Eric Bana, who's a tough built Australian guy. He's could probably kill anyone. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, about how it ends up Leslie Mann and his relationship kind of gets better. They kind of realize that they've been shitty in this relationship, and now they're working towards something good. And then meanwhile, George Simmons, Adam Sandler's character, kind of just doesn't really get anything out of it. He kind of realizes that he's been a scumbag. I don't even know if he realizes it, though. He more so just kind of has to deal with what his actions have caused, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And the movie
it really doesn't have a whole lot of repercussion for him, other than the fact that he doesn't get what he wants, which is, his last fling.
And also things kind of are left on a pretty negative note between him and Ira. Ira thinks he's crazy, and it's kind of Adam Sandler's character's true colors kind of come out and shows that doesn't actually care for Ira that much. Yeah. So they're kind of, they kind of fight, and then some time passes, and then you get a last scene of them hanging out in the grocery store, shooting the shit again, and it's kind of, I think it's interesting because it comes back to talking about just like human interaction, human relationships, and also just, making jokes to one another. They're both making fun of each other, and the movie kind of does this weird. It's the kind of thing where you can realize at that point Adam Sandler's character has learned something, and that he kind of had to, kind of go crazy a little bit, or kind of like try to relive some like past experiences he never kind of got to fully see through, and some bad stuff happened because of it. And he also dragged down this guy Ira, this up and coming comedian, because of it. And they kind of realize that, and they kind of make that connection at the end, and it's just it's like the whole tone of the movie in that last 2 minutes. It's very just like kind of funny, but at the same time, kind of dark.
And the fact that they can come back to the grocery store scene and still shoot the shit, like after everything that's happened, they can still laugh about it.
Yeah,
it speaks to what the message of the movie is. It's about funny people.
Right. So that is about them. Yeah, that's the title of the film. I think.
It's about people that, they almost hide their insecurities with their comedy, or that's kind of
it's a defense mechanism. They're trying to just this is what they have. They're gonna self-deprecate each other. They're gonna make fun of themselves, but to benefit themselves at the end of the day, right? To make themselves feel better.
Yeah,
you're totally right. I guess it is kind of strange that like. That is his therapy, right? Like comedy is his therapy. That's how he's gonna make himself feel better. That's how he's gonna get through the sickness. Yeah. That's how he's gonna try and better other people's lives, right? Mm-hmm. He makes a lot of pretty dark comments here at the beginning of the film, saying how like you guys actually have to pay someone to entertain you. I'm here as your entertainer. Yeah. You like is that how low your guys' life are? You need to pay someone to entertain you, like.
What are you going to do when I'm dead?
Yeah.
I feel bad for you. What are you going to do when I'm gone?
Yeah, right? And it's funny because, that's kind of fair, I guess, in a way. Like, it's being so dark about it. It's being so, melodramatic about the entire subject matter, right? But that's what this movie's about, and I think it's a pretty real movie in a lot of ways, and I think that's why I enjoy it so much, because it's kind of an interesting movie to look at, like, the human condition in a way, honestly, just like how people view themselves, how people want to maybe reach for their dreams, how people go about doing that, and what's important to you in life, and how do you interact with that, and what does fame do to that, right?
And dealing with certain real world, dealing with the good and the bad in life, basically. Like, honestly, George Simmons has what a lot of people would consider the ideal life. True. Rich, living it up, doing what they want, that kind of thing, but still the same problems as any other person,
so true.
If not more.
More money, more problems, right? That's what it's all about. But no, you're actually so right about that, Dan. I think it is so true to look at the two characters, right? You got Ira and you got George. George has the life, right? He has the life Ira's working towards. He has that career. He has that the backlog of filmography, and he's done so many successful things. Yeah. And I think Ira kind of gets that reality check of like, is this what I want? Or like, is this what it's all about? And I think because of that, he's like, I don't want to go this route. Like, I still want to do comedy because I enjoy it, but I don't want to necessarily become this man, right?
I don't want to become,
That being said, I don't think Adam Sandler's character is a total piece of shit. Like, he definitely understands where he's gone wrong in life.
Yeah, he got lost somewhere along the way.
And he gets lost again in this film.
That's right, but I think it's on a smaller scale that makes him realize it on a bigger scale.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I mean, so overall, I really do enjoy this movie. I would recommend it. It's kind of a underrated film in a lot of ways. Obviously not a lot of people check this out. This film cost $75 million, only made 72, lost $3 million off of it. A lot of that went to marketing. Just a fun fact: Jack and Jill cost 80. Let's always remember that. But
I'd say overall, I definitely recommend this movie as well.
It's a fun film to revisit, especially after Judd Apatow kind of, like, he was already killing it beforehand, but even more so after this movie. He went, This Is 40, and he made Trainwreck just last year with Amy Schumer. But not on that, but he's been everywhere in this Hollywood scene. Like, he's done so many. He's been a part of a lot of projects. Produced the show Girls. What else? We can look back at even some older stuff. Undeclared. The guy is really part of what comedy is today, honestly, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's got a very unique take on comedy, and it's interesting to see it come through in a different way in all the different styles and stories and contexts of TV shows and film that he's been doing recently. Like, Trainwreck is so much different than Funny People, and Funny People is so much different than Knocked Up, and like, he really does take a different circumstance.
It's true.
And it's cool that it's always a first circumstance between and including people in some way or another.
Yeah, he does character development very well.
Yeah.
He looks at a character's plot line and the plot devices around that, and he executes that fairly well, honestly. Although in the case of Trainwreck, I found that movie a little bit like disjointed, honestly. I feel like it was trying to be a little bit of funny people, trying to be a little bit of knocked up, and it just kind of got confused. For me, I would have rather it just kind of gone the funny people route, be a little bit more mellow, or just go the knocked up route and be kind of more slapsticky.
And you know what? Maybe he was trying to find that in between, but I think
the only thing that gets
overall it has to be one or the other.
It gets strange for me. I don't know if it has to be one or the other, but in this movie, in Trainwreck, it's like one half of the film is so distinctly one vibe, and the second half is another. Yeah. So it's really they contrast kind of poorly, honestly.
Right.
They're so like different, and that's where I think it's a bit of a fail. But that being said, looking at him as a director, the guy always gets the best cast. Look at Freaks and Geeks, for example. So many huge stars have just come out of that show.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he definitely has a way of picking an actor that totally relates to a character in his script very well, or at least can relate or pull through or really showcase what he's looking for very well.
Yeah, I think so, and he has a really good job of finding the actors to play the right role.
Yeah.
In that case, and it's fun. Like I think it's fun to see him kind of take new talent or existing talent, Adam Sandler for example, and do something different with it. Because Adam Sandler in this movie, to me, is the real Adam Sandler. I honestly, I seriously believe that. And it still baffles me, like we mentioned earlier, that like after this movie...
He goes and makes Jack and Jill.
Can we just we're going to take a quick look at the films Adam Sandler made after Funny People. Keep in mind, this is a movie about him essentially failing as a comedian in his mind and trying to reclaim himself. Let's just keep this in mind really quick. All right, so after Funny People... he went on to create the classic film Grown Ups, which has the great line Saskatchewan in it. But not only that, he went to be a part of Zookeeper, featuring our boy Kevin James, Shaka Brada Kevin James. And then in 2011, we got the masterpiece that is Jack and Jill. And that is, that's a cinematic treasure. We look at this movie as an icon, really. You know, you got your Gone with the Winds, you got your Citizen Kanes, you got your Jack and Jills. It's that kind of thing.
Dude, he's in Hotel Transylvania too. He's Dracula in Hotel Transylvania.
Have you seen Hotel Transylvania?
I've seen the first one.
It's pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too bad. That's
probably the best thing he's done. Keep in mind, he also did That's My Boy, Grown Ups 2, Blended. Oh, dude, Blended so bad.
Yeah, that movie is fucking horrible.
God. That is a bad movie.
Man,
Pixels?
I saw Top 5 and I read it as Fast 5 for a second and I was confused.
That's the one with Chris Rock, right?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest.
Yeah, that is. I never saw that, but that looks pretty good, actually. I didn't know Adam Sandler was in it, though, to be fair. Pixels, though, that's a bad flick. Bad flick. That being said, can we take a moment to just talk about, like, back on Blended for a second? We were chatting about the film Just Go With It, and you brought up, you're like, why does Adam Sandler always go to, like, awesome places with, like, hot girls? It's because literally, for the past, like, well, I would say roughly 6 years, Adam Sandler goes on vacation for film. Literally, he takes his entire like friends and family just on vacation. That's where he makes a movie. That's why he goes and makes films.
Are you serious?
Which in one way is kind of awesome because he brings his friends and family to have a good time. But the other way, he doesn't care about the movie.
he's hanging out with his friends and family, literally making a shitty movie and making bank off of it.
He made Blended just so he'd go on vacation in Africa with his family, and also make a film while he's there. That movie only cost $40. Whoa, he's taking a cut. Adam Sandler usually needs that solid 80 mil. He needs that solid 80 mil.
Adam Sandler, like, wow, how do people on IMDb rate Blended 6.5 out of 5? That literally beats Funny People. That's unreal.
See, now you gotta film like Pixels, obviously the 88, the standard Sandler cast. You need that 88 for Sandler.
Wait, Pixels cost 88 mil?
Man, are you kidding me? This is from the same people that made Jack and Jill. That thing cost 80 mil. Anyways, it's probably enough money talk. But like,
what's Adam Sandler's most expensive movie you made?
It's probably like, I couldn't tell you. But here's my thoughts. I just think overall, Adam Sandler he's fucking the system right now. That's the kind of guy that's screwing the system.
Oh man, he's getting any type of advertising he can possibly squeeze into every single movie he makes.
But I hear the guy's a really nice dude. I've heard this.
Adam Sandler?
Apparently everyone loves him, and that's why he does all this stuff. Because apparently he's like the nicest guy in real life. And everybody loves him. Except Rob Schneider. Apparently him and Rob Schneider have a feud going on right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, because I feel like they've been friends for a long time. Like,
man, Rob Schneider, that's a guy that needs more love, honestly.
Yeah,
Rob Schneider
I totally agree.
He hasn't been killing it lately. Also, remember when Adam Sandler was like a singer? This guy has a 2 times platinum album. He has two-time platinum albums, comedy albums.
Man, Adam Sandler on average per movie makes about $37 million. His 2010 movie Grown Ups earned a 10 out of 100 on Rotten Tomatoes, but was his highest grossing of all time. Even Sandler falters sometimes. His 2011 movie Jack and Jill, in which he played a man and his twin sister, earned $180 million. Not quite enough to cover the film's production budget and advertising costs. Wow.
Yeah, let me just talk about... It's just strange to look at this flick we're talking about today, Funny People, and just kind of see himself... Like, actually, at this point, Adam Sandler's a living meme. I'd say he's a living meme. The guy has honestly...
He just, like, he's exploits the system. It's like he found out how to make money in film, and he sort of gave up on good film. That's what it seems like.
He honestly made fun of his future self in Funny People. It's almost as if he didn't know how to live his life. Judd Apatow wrote it for him, and he's just been living it now. That's literally what it looks like at this point.
Dude, Adam Sandler or George Simmons? I feel like we should change his name in real life.
I'm calling him George Sandler for now on.
George Sandler.
That's what it is. Because honestly, at this point, it's just kind of too bad. Recently,
he's done The Ridiculous Six, which people are saying is not bad.
Who are these people? Because I want to know.
Okay, my sister, actually. Shout out to Steph Mason. What's up, girl?
What's up, girl? I don't know. I haven't seen that yet. I've been avoiding it. I'll be completely honest with you. It popped up on Netflix, and I was not ready. I was not ready to even go there.
Dude, people who like The Ridiculous Six also like Grown Ups too, according to IMDb.
Well, that kind of says it all as far as I'm concerned.
Also, the Cobbler as well. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I started watching that. Like, I've given up on Sandler. I'm sorry. Like, at this point, there's nothing more to say. This dude is he's exploiting the system. I'm over it. I'm over Sandler. If anything, I'm going to go back and watch Funny People on a regular basis just to remember what Sandler could be.
It's true. He really is good.
He's a pretty good actor. He's not, like, phenomenal, but, like, actually, when Sandler gets serious, he's actually pretty good. Punch Drunk Love, Spanglish.
Yeah.
He's pretty good in those flicks, honestly. Yeah. When he's more of a serious actor... or takes time, like kind of is in more of a serious or dramatic role.
When he's focusing and not partying with his friends and fam?
Yeah, he actually kills it. Like, there's a lot of comedians out there that kind of can pull it off. Like, Jim Carrey to a degree. Like, it's kind of a thing, and I don't think he's an exception. Sandler, like, in this flick in particular, I think it's his best work in, honestly, 7 years. I'm putting it that way.
Oh, no way. Click was one of my favorite movies of all time.
Actually, Click's pretty good. That, like, the last, 20 minutes...
I actually hate Click. I was being super sarcastic.
You hate Click?
I really hate Click.
I don't mind Click.
I fucking hate Click, dude.
Why do you hate Click, dude?
It's like, it's just so depressing, and it feels like a plotline that's been redone over and over and over again.
The thing about Click, yeah, I see what you're getting at. It's one of those things where, like, it's kind of manipulating you to feel sad. It's like, you better feel sad now.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
In your face. I get that. Also, it was all a dream. That's like the worst, like, plot twist ever. Oh, it was a dream. Hey.
Yeah, seriously.
I fell asleep in Bed Bath & Beyond. Actually, yeah, you're right. Click does suck.
Dude.
Click, I forgot.
Not a great movie.
Back to Judd Apatow for a minute. We've been checking out one show he's been producing and writing for. I haven't finished his series yet, but I did quite enjoy it. And you're into
I have finished it, yeah. Matter of fact, I've gone back and rewatched quite a few episodes already, too.
And what's this show called again?
It's called Love.
Just Love, yeah. He's a creator of the show. He wrote a couple episodes, executive producer, but he's definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
He hasn't directed a show since
you can tell it's
Undeplayed.
got a huge Judd Apatow influence and feel to it.
Yeah, do you want to say a little bit about the series? Like, what kind of works for it? What doesn't work for it?
Okay, so it centers around, it really centers and focuses around two characters living completely different lifestyles with completely different habits, but they cross paths at some point and they end up getting into a relationship. And the show's called
Spoilers,
Love.
dude. Spoilers. You on that spoiler vibe right now?
I'm on that spoiler vibe. You guys know this already, though. We literally just told the entire plot line to funny people. So
did we though?
Spoiler alert.
I feel like we kept some things in there. I feel like we kept a few things in there.
Like what? We should
absolutely nothing. Continue.
Okay, so it follows two characters that inevitably end up getting into a relationship, and it's about, the show's really about real world love. It's not about it's not about like crazy stupid love. The movie. It's not about that fictional sort of distant idea of what love is. It's very.
Which
it's
makes
very
sense.
real world. Like there's ups and downs and twists and turns, and you don't know if it's gonna pull through or not, or you're not even sure if you wanted to, et cetera. But it's very interesting, especially in the way that it's told and the tone. And there's really good contrast between both these characters. On one hand, we've got this slightly nerdy dude who spent most of his 20s working his ass off and not really partying, and now he's in his 30s and he's not really sure what he wants, and he feels like he misses out on something, or he's missing out on some of the party aspect, or trying new things, or stuff like that. And on the other hand, we've got a girl who did the total opposite, and she's almost looking to get away from the shitty relationships she's had in the past, get over some of her addictions that she developed in her 20s from partying and stuff too much, and they end up kind of clicking. They click on a really interesting level, and they bounce off each other really well. And it's really funny show, dude. Like, I've
seen the first 3 episodes. There's only 10 in the series, or a season. I should definitely get around to finishing it.
Well, you should almost savor it, because I'd say it's quite
apparently
good.
Episode 7, Magic, is directed by my boy Steve Buscemi, dude.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, man.
That's a great episode, actually.
Steve Buscemi, that guy kills it every time, man. Seriously, kills it. That's pretty sick. Honestly, I think it's cool that he's getting out there and doing more shows. I mean, Love, obviously, like, you've been telling me nothing but good things about it. I've enjoyed what I've seen, but then he also did Girls, which is a really popular show, and also a pretty different spin on, I guess, kind of the Sex and the City kind of idea of like what, the modern day woman lives on a day-to-day life, right?
Right.
It's more real look into that.
I haven't watched a lot of Girls, but I've seen a few episodes, and it's not like, in Knocked Up, you get the group of guys and they're cracking dick jokes and fart jokes, and you know how it is. Yeah. Well, you get a different side of that with this movie, where it focuses around like the girls, the group and sense of humor, and how things are different, and like why they're different, and how
their personalities. No, it's cool. And Girls is kind of more of like Lena Dunham's kind of creation in a way, but Judd Apatow kind of put it out there, and he wrote for it and did some things for it. But I think one reoccurring theme we keep seeing, we kept talking about today, is just that real look at things, right? Like
that realism. But
getting rid of kind of this like fantasy-driven idea of what love or life or friendship or anything really is, and putting more real-world tones, more based on true story ideas, more, things people can relate with all around the world, and not need to sort of idealize certain ideas.
It's very focused. It's well written. The dialogue is very well written, and I don't know. He pulls off comedy in such an interesting way.
It's almost kind of artful in a way. It feels a lot more like focused on it trying to deliver a message rather than trying to deliver jokes.
Yeah, and it almost comes across in a certain sense that's like, elementary school, you did something stupid and it sucked at the time. Now 5 years from now, you're laughing about it because it's hilarious. It almost comes across in that sense of the word, where it's like, stupid Jonah Hill or Seth Rogen does stupid shit and Knocked Up, and you laugh about it because he gets over it, he gets past it, and it becomes something to laugh about almost. You get this, and that's almost sort of a slight style of his comedy, I'd say.
And nothing kind of goes to waste in that way. I feel like any of those jokes end up being kind of part of that character's, his identity, his
how he's progressed, how he's grown and moved forward.
It's interesting because you don't get that a lot in comedy, and I think it's fun to see. I wouldn't necessarily call it smart comedy. To a degree I would, but I don't know if that might be more of a compliment, too much of a compliment, but it is smarter in a way because it's more focused on telling real life events or focusing on a story as opposed to...
And a lot of it's emotion driven.
It's true. There's not a lot of a zany plot. There's never like this crazy like, oh, we need to go on a road trip to like find our grandmother's like necklace to sell it for gold, and then maybe we'll get a new house in the end. It's
just about very real world things that could happen. It's like series of events that unfolds.
I got someone pregnant. I'm trying to get a new job. I know someone who's terminally ill. Like these are real world things that people can relate with, right?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like a crazy plot device or a crazy, some sort of crazy subject matter that has to be there to make it zany, or everything's centered around this like idea of something that's just going to keep going wrong, like your average Ben Stiller film, or like something like that. Like it's more so, you're right, focused on, I guess, emotions, relationships. But to me, that makes these movies a lot more, these TV series.
It's relatable.
It's relatable,
but it's not cheesy and forced.
It's not forced, and that's a good point to bring up, because it doesn't feel like it's shoving it in your face. More or less, although I will admit Trainwreck felt that way a little bit, but I'm nitpicking at that point.
There's ups and downs in filmmaking for sure. But, and Trainwreck is by no means a bad movie. No, it's not. And I mean, just I guess like kind of final thoughts on Apatow as a general. I think he's one of these guys we're gonna look back at and like kind of honestly see his impact on film and comedy. Yeah. And I think it's important. And I think funny people honestly will forever be his like underrated gem. I will honestly think that. Well, I think that's a good spot to leave it.
Totally, man. Well, thanks so much for joining us this week, guys. We really appreciate it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. Check us out on SoundCloud, Stitcher, whatever podcast source you're using. Make sure you subscribe. Give us 5 stars on iTunes, all that cool stuff. Thanks for listening to the second viewing. We'll catch you next week.
Shaka, bruh.